Do you ever feel like no matter how many different projects you start, you can't seem to find one that sticks? You pick up your crochet hook or your knitting needles and you think, yes, today is the day. And then 20 minutes goes by and you wish you were doing literally anything else. Even though that you know that this hobby is something that you love. This was me earlier this spring, and if this sounds like you or someone you know, then you may be in a bit of a yarn rut. And I think we should talk about it. Welcome back to my channel, Tangerines Over the Rainbow. It is me here, Maxine. After taking some time to dig myself out of the yarn hole that I was in recently, I have come up with 5 reasons as to why we might fall into a yarn rut and how we can maybe get ourselves out of it. The first thing, and perhaps the most obvious thing that I looked at when I was starting my reflection, was the yarn that I was using to make my projects. Some words that I got from my therapist when I learned how to knit and crochet was to use yarns in textures and colors that spark joy. Looking back on this piece of advice, I realized how important it is to carry this forward into the future for all projects. I set a goal to stash bust over the late winter and early spring, and I have been struggling to get through it. At a certain point, I realized that a big part of the reason why I'm struggling to get it done is because the yarn I'm using kind of sucks and just isn't what I want to be using for the given project. I am making it known here and now that we are not beholden to the yarns that we purchased last week or last year or whenever they may have been purchased, and that it is perfectly acceptable at any given time to find the yarn a new home. If you have yarn that doesn't spark joy anymore, donate it. Give it to a friend. Sell it on Facebook Marketplace. And just accept that the yarn you purchased many moons ago doesn't serve you today. Thinking about what serves us in the moment is important, and I'm gonna bring it forward into my next point, which is that you might be in a yarn rut because the projects that you're working on aren't useful to you. Sure, you can make something for fun, like anything really. You can literally crochet or knit anything. Almost. But a big question that I've been asking myself lately when I go to start a project is, what am I realistically going to do with this when I'm done with it? For example, a project like making a crochet hook case was easy for me to get done, and I got it done in under 2 days because I bought a 10-piece hook set and needed somewhere to house them. However, since then I've set out to make more small projects like a crochet iPad cover or a crochet book cover, but every single time I put it into the universe that I'm going to make these projects, I just don't. I grab the yarn, I sit down to do it, and nothing happens. Or something happens and it's totally unrelated to what I was trying to do in the first place. I think a big part of this is because I don't actually need an iPad cover when my iPad already has a case on it that is useful. And I don't need to crochet a cover for my books because my books are just fine as they are. In an ideal world where we have an infinite attention span and an eternal flow of dopamine, maybe we could crochet our entire lives just for the fun of it. But you wouldn't buy a shirt at the mall if you weren't going to wear it, so maybe let's ask ourselves, what do we gain from knitting or crocheting something that we're not actually going to use? You're less likely to buy that same shirt in the mall if you already have it, right? You may be stuck in a yarn rut because the projects that you're trying to work on aren't new or novel experiences. When I started making wearables, my first sweater that I made was very exciting for me because it was a brand new project that I took upon myself to learn how to knit a raglan sweater top down with no pattern. I started knitting my second raglan sweater over the winter, but about halfway through the project, I lost all steam because the sweater is virtually a carbon copy of the raglan sweater that I already made, just in a different color. To this day, 6 months later, I still have not finished this project because it just doesn't feel like a purposeful or exciting project that offers me something that I don't already have. It can feel safe or comfortable to go with what you know, and sometimes that's exactly what the moment calls for. But to really shake things up, we need to get uncomfortable and try something new. This can be accomplished by simply trying a different pattern. Or if you know how to knit something, maybe try crocheting it instead. You can always switch up your methodology to get a different experience out of the journey, even if you want your project to have a similar outcome to something that you already have. More than likely, learning a new skill or starting a brand new project is a challenging experience. Which brings us to our next point. You might be stuck in a yarn rut because your current projects aren't challenging enough. I've been somebody who's been motivated by challenge for as long as I remember. My close friends and probably my family know that I have a habit of staring into a big fire and walking directly into it. But to me, this point is more about elevating the skills that we already have to find new challenges within experiences that we are already familiar with. Knitting a raglan sweater is fine, but how many times can I realistically do the same top-down solid color thing? Crocheting a hexagon cardigan is fine, but how many times can I realistically fold a hexagon to make a wearable and still feel excited about it? Things like adding color work, playing with different stitches to add different textures, knitting intarsia or crocheting tapestry designs, knitting wearables bottom up instead of knitting them top down, or knitting flat or crocheting panels and learning how to sew them together. These are all more technical skills that come with a more intermediate or advanced understanding of the basics of knit and crochet, but these are all things that I plan to do in the future to keep myself excited about creating wearables that aren't just the same basic freehands that I've already done. These things do take time, and there has to be a moment where you're confident enough in your skill set to take the leap into the next challenge. So it's important to be careful because if something is too hard, then it's going to make us not want to finish, and we will just get frustrated and give up and end up back where we started. If you are struggling in a yarn rut and have exhausted this list but are still thinking, well, Maxine, these are fine points, but I have already tried making changes with all of these things in mind and I am still stuck. then maybe you just need to do something else for a little bit. And that's perfectly fine. Knitting and crochet are my primary creative hobbies and something that I lean on for structure and excitement in my personal life. But I also have other hobbies like video games and reading and doing yoga that I aim to experience in a balance, and knit and crochet should be no exception. Back in February, I got so tired of working on all these little yarn projects that I eventually just put all of my stuff away for 2 full weeks and didn't even think about it. It was a little weird to do, but in the end, this was actually the best thing for me to do and eventually what brought my spark back. During this break, we had one of the final cold snaps before spring, and I finally had an idea to make a hooded hexagon cardigan to rain in the final days of winter. This was a project that had a purpose, offered me something that I hadn't done before, which was make a hood, and allowed me to work on my goal of stash busting because I got to use yarn that I already had. These 2 weeks really reminded me that sometimes you just need to take a break and let your brain recalibrate itself. Time really does heal all wounds, and your brain will tell you exactly what is right for you when it's right for you. If you are feeling stuck, I encourage you to explore a new hobby or tap into some old favorites because that yarn closet will still be there for you when you are ready to get back. I hope that this video was able to give you some perspective as to why sometimes our hobbies might get a little stale. My name is Maxine, and on this channel I talk about knit and crochet and being queer and anything under that sphere of existence. I post project vlogs, sometimes I post personal vlogs, depending on what I feel like. So if you are someone who enjoys playing with yarn, or if you're a queer person, or if you are just a fierce ally who likes to consume queer content, I hope that you will subscribe and stick around because I would be so happy to have you. Okay, bye!